Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Happy Monday, guys. I'm Nate Jackson. Welcome to Guerilla Sports Daily. Did you have a good weekend? I had a pretty good weekend. Colorado Sports had a pretty damn good weekend, too. We've got a lot to get into today. Let's just start right off. Broncos win. That was on Thursday, but let's just call it the win, or the weekend. 33-3. The Buffs won 34-7 against Arizona. And the Avs won twice. After starting 0-4, the Avs won 2 games, one on Friday, one last night. So a great weekend for Colorado sports. And, let's start off with the Broncos, because the Broncos improved to 4-3, winning in Sean Payton's return to New Orleans, a homecoming of sorts for Sean Payton, who spent 15 years there. And everything went right for the Broncos and Sean Payton there. They tried to downplay it and make it, just another game. Wasn't just another game. And his Broncos played like it wasn't just another game. Those guys were ready to play. Now, the Saints didn't look good. They were short-manned. Derek Carr hurt. Rashid, the receiver, hurt. And Chris Olave, the receiver, hurt. A lot of guys hurt. But that's no excuse. You got a full team full of guys, and you went in there in their backyard in a loud stadium and put the whooping on them. It was Drew Brees night. You remember Drew Brees being honored by their Ring of Fame, their Hall of Fame. Well, the Broncos played the spoilers there, and Sean Payton came back with a victory. So the Broncos are at 4-3 right now, pretty far ahead of where people thought. Vegas thought they were only going to win 5.5 games the entire year. I don't know how you win a half a game, but that's what Vegas thought. They're only going to win a half a game plus 5. Broncos 2 victories away from surpassing that total. So if you bet the over on that one, things are looking good. The Broncos playing a pretty shitty opponent this coming Sunday. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the Broncos coming home, getting a little mini bye. Almost knocked over my coffee. Actually, it's a cortado. You guys know what a cortado is? Of course you don't, because you're not a freaking loser. Cortado is espresso and milk, Isn't every coffee drink espresso and milk, other than just straight coffee? Just varying degrees of milk, varying quantities of milk. The cortado just doesn't have a lot of milk, hence the tiny cup. Speaking of coffee, you ever had a cup of coffee in Europe? You can't find one. They do espresso there. They don't do coffee. Can you imagine opening a coffee shop where you sell coffee in Europe? I think it would do well. I'm just saying. So the Broncos improved to 4-3, coming home to play the Panthers, who are a pretty bad team. And, the Broncos are in the playoff hunt right now. It's kind of crazy to talk about that. 7 games in, 10 games left. We're going to talk about the NFL in a minute, but I want to go shift gears to the Colorado Buffaloes, the other Colorado football team that whooped ass this weekend. CU whooped up on Arizona 34-7 in Arizona. Barack Obama was campaigning out there in Arizona and talked to a group of Arizona fans and said, don't sleep on the Arizona team, Wildcats. They got 1-2 in a row against the Buffs. Buffs have 2 good players. Think Arizona's going to win. Of course, he was pandering to the audience. And he was wrong. He was dead wrong. The CU Buffs actually whooped up on the Arizona Wildcats. Arizona went for an onside kick on the very first play of the game. They knew what was going to happen, and it happened anyway. The Avalanche started, and really, well, not the Avs, but the avalanche of scoring started with the Buffs. The Buffs were able to whoop up on Arizona and really present a team effort. The Buffs, who have been the objects of some criticism about their style of play, about some of the off-the-field stuff, about their inability to play complete football, really rounding into form as a complete football team. Coach Prime learning on the job and turning into what I see is a complete coach. Offense is playing well. They're trying to run the football more. They are. Credit to Pat Shurmur offensive coordinator for establishing that. And then defensively, they're playing a whole lot better, and special teams is playing well, and they're not giving it up late in games. I know they had that one against Kansas State that they wish they could get back. But the Colorado Buffaloes are playing some good football and are set up pretty well to make a run in these last 5 games, 5-2, and headed towards some big games coming up. The only kind of wild card there is Travis Hunter, and Travis Hunter last couple weeks hasn't been healthy, guys. He hurt his shoulder, and what do you think is going to happen when a guy plays 120 snaps? He's going to get banged up, and right now Travis Hunter halfway through the season is banged up. And he's a guy you're going to need if you're really trying to make waves. And he's going to be declaring for the draft after this year. And so you got to figure out how you want to use this guy. I think going forward, just pick a side. Just pick a side and use them there. Be the best you can be on that side, Travis, because I don't think you're going to play both ways in the NFL. Because, halfway through this college season against some pretty lesser opponents, let's face it, these aren't exactly juggernauts. He's already worn down. So don't make this young man do all of that. Football seasons are long. And we're going to talk about this a little on today's show. Some of the stuff you get excited about in the front half of the season ends up biting you in the second half of the season when nobody even remembers the first half of the season. Guys, we're still in October, all right? Real football happens, at least in college, in November and then in January. But in the NFL, it happens in December, okay? And no one remembers who the winner of September and October were. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but the Colorado Buffaloes improved to 5-2 with a 34-7 win, and Coach Prime is rolling. And how about the Colorado Avalanche, guys? The Colorado Avalanche, after starting 0-4, eliciting a ton of panic by a lot of folks around here, are back on track with 2 games, 2 wins in a row. Friday, they beat the Ducks 4-3. And 4-1 last night over the Sharks. So improving to 2-4 again after dropping 4 straight. Ross Colton had 2 goals in each of those wins. There's Ross right there, sticking his tongue out for some reason. What's he looking at? What are you looking at, Ross? What are you looking at? What's so tongue stick out worthy, Ross? Either way, playing some good hockey right now. Ross Colton, Nathan McKinnon had a goal and an assist against the Ducks. And Cale Makar with a goal and 2 assists last night against the Sharks. My Sharks, not my Sharks. I'm from San Jose. So, I think I was, 12, 13 years old when the Sharks came to town in San Jose. And none of us really knew hockey. So some of us tried to learn hockey and failed because we were already embedded in the sports we loved. But that's around the time the Avalanche came here as well. And, they've been on not a tear ever since, but this is an organization that has some very high standards and some excellent players, some of the best in the world. And the expectations are very high here that the Avalanche are going to find their way to get back to the Stanley Cup Finals. And those last 2 wins in a row are going to sure help with the confidence there and getting things going in the right direction. There's a lot of games to play. It's not like the NFL where if you start off 0-4, your season's over. Season's not over. Season is just beginning with the Avs, and those 2 wins in a row are sure making them feel good. All right, I want to get into this big NFL weekend that happened this past weekend, and there's a game tonight. Actually, there's 2 games tonight, 2 Monday night games tonight. But, hey, it's NFL season. We're in the midst of it, and some teams are really starting to shape out. You can see who the good teams are. You can see who the really bad teams are. And there was a couple big matchups this weekend, probably none bigger than a Super Bowl rematch between the 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, we don't like the Kansas City Chiefs around here. They have won this division, how many straight years? 5, 6? The cream of the crop. Patrick Mahomes is the leader of that organization. And he's not playing very well this year. They say, at least the numbers don't say so. But they're still undefeated. They're the last undefeated team in the NFL. They beat the Niners at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara yesterday, 28-18. There were 5 interceptions thrown in that game and 0 touchdowns. That's right. That man threw no touchdowns. That man threw 2 picks. Brock Purdy the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, threw 3. So there were 5 interceptions thrown, 0 touchdowns thrown, 28-18. These are the 2 best teams in the league last year. And really, these big games, it just shows you guys, these big games come down to defense. They come down to turnovers. They come down to who can capitalize on those and make the right play at the right time late in the game. Brandon Ayuk, the receiver for the 49ers, was injured, and it looked like a pretty nasty knee injury there. Deebo Samuel didn't play at all. So the 49ers are pretty short man. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey still out. Jordan Mason kind of banged up. But everybody's getting banged up around this point. The Chiefs also kind of banged up, and they found a way to win. Now the Chiefs have beat the 49ers in 5 straight games, and the 49ers fall to 3-4. Again, the Chiefs, the last undefeated team in the league. Why? Because the last undefeated team going into last night, the Minnesota Vikings, fell to Detroit. The Detroit Lions, 31-29, in a pretty fantastic game there. You love what Dan Campbell has done in Detroit, and obviously, honestly, what is going on in Minnesota as well. Those 2 teams right there, fighting it out for NFC North title, and those 2 teams could be on a collision course in the playoffs. Again, 31-29, the Detroit Lions. Both of those quarterbacks incredibly efficient in these games. Only 3 or 4 incompletions for both of those guys. They only threw the ball 25, 27 times, leaned on their running game, leaned on their defense. It seems as if that's what's going on in the NFL this year. The big through-the-air passing touchdowns that we've expected over the years kind of been curtailed this year for whatever reason. The teams who have a balanced attack seem to be the teams who are excelling right now, and the teams who rely too much on the pass are not. And so the 49ers, the last remaining undefeated team in the NFL. Also, last night, I don't know if you guys caught it, it was the shoulda, coulda bowl between the Steelers and the Jets. Steelers and the Jets, headed up by a couple of quarterbacks who almost ended up, well, one did end up in Denver, and one was almost gonna and didn't because things just didn't work out. But the Steelers headed up by Russell Wilson, and the Jets led by Aaron Rodgers. Steelers won this game 37-15. That's right, 37-15. There was a point when the Jets were up, and Aaron Rodgers threw a couple interceptions. You kind of like to see Aaron Rodgers sad and fucking up. Do we? Is it just me? Is it just me? Or do we all enjoy seeing Aaron Rodgers fail? For me, I'll tell you why it is. It's because I'm a big believer that you don't want to taunt the football gods. There are certain ways that you have to do things in life, and you can't cut corners in football. Football is one of the sports where, and I played all the sports, not all the sports, but I played a lot of sports. I was a swimmer growing up. I was a soccer player, basketball. I played football. Football is one of those sports where you just can't cut any corners. You have to work your ass off every day, do things the right way, put in the work, put your team first, sacrifice your individual goals for the good of the team. And if you do that day in and day out, you do the little things the right way, then good things happen. I mean, that's the case in life, right, guys? But especially in the game of football, there are no shortcuts. And Aaron Rodgers wanted to take a shortcut. He's wanted to take shortcuts over the last couple of years, believing that he's just so much better than everyone else, that he can do things differently and get the same result. And that's not the case. The Jets fall to 2-5, and everything Aaron Rodgers is touching right now is turning to shit. Okay, he's getting his coach fired. He's bringing in his old receiver, and he's not putting up numbers. And he looks very sad. Aaron Rodgers stated after the game, he's very somber and talking like this and just kind of looking down, and said, you can't win 10 in a row without winning 1 in a row. That's where the Jets are now. They're just trying to win 1. And they fired their coach, like I said. They have an interim coach, and it's just in turmoil over there. Not in turmoil are the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russell Wilson at the helm. Russell Wilson, who we are still paying lots of millions. I think it's like 50-something million this year and 30-something next year. Russell Wilson is a rich man. He was rich before he got here, but the Penner Walton group made him a lot richer. George paid him. general manager of the Broncos, made him a lot richer. And Sean Payton said, I don't care relative to the money we're spending on you. We don't want you around. Bye-bye, Russell. And Russell was set free. The Pittsburgh Steelers picked up Russell Wilson and paid not a lot for him. I think they just paid the minimum salary for a veteran of his tenure. So they're paying him like a little over $1 million. The Broncos are paying the rest. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, after starting 4-2 with Justin Fields, Mike Tomlin made a very difficult decision. He decided to start Russell Wilson, who had been dealing with a calf injury. And it worked out so far. One game. Russell looked a little rusty in the first half. In the second half, he kind of caught fire. And he was also talking after the game about, how, what was the metaphor he used? It was like playoff baseball. He started off 0-2. And, then he got hot at the end. And he told Mike Tomlin, I'm about to get hot. I'm going to get hot. I'm going to get hot. I'm going to get hot. Then he got hot. And Russell Wilson threw a couple touchdown passes and threw for 260-something yards and silenced a lot of the folks maybe around here who said Russell can't play anymore, at least for a week. But it just kind of goes to show you, there are different ways to win. There's different ways to skin a cat when it comes to playing the game of football. There are different styles in which you attempt to win. And each head coach, lays out to his team the week of the game. This is how we are going to win. This is how we are going to beat this opponent. Mike Tomlin and Sean Payton have very different ways they like to win. Their how is completely different. And for a guy like Russell Wilson, who excelled in Seattle with Pete Carroll, who's a lot like Mike Tomlin, that how is much more comfortable to Russell Wilson than Sean Payton's was. Sean Payton's how was like, hieroglyphics to this guy right here, Russell Wilson. He didn't really vibe with Sean Payton. There's different ways to win in the NFL, and Sean Payton is an offensive-minded coach who wants to run things a certain way, and Russell just plays the game a little differently. And so, hey, both can result in wins, but they're coming at it from different directions, and it is for the best that Russell's no longer here. He is still a good football player, and based on last night, he does still have something in the tank. We'll see how far that goes, but Russell Wilson, 1-0 as a starter of the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the Broncos' opponent this coming up week. It's the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers lost 40-7 to the Washington Commanders. 40-7, okay? The Saints beat the Panthers 40-something to 7. The Panthers are the worst team in football. They are, okay? They're giving up an average of 34.7 points per game, 34.7 points per game, almost 400 yards of offense, and they only score 15.7 points per game, okay? You guys do the math. They give up 34, and they score 15. That means they're losers. They lose a lot, okay? The Broncos should have a decisive victory here this weekend. Now, that doesn't mean you phone it in. You still prepare to get your opponent's best. You take them seriously. You respect them as professionals, and you prepare to win. But the Broncos are favored by 7.5. This weekend it's going to be here, and it's going to be an important win because after this, the Broncos are on the road for 2 weeks in a row, one against the Ravens and one against the Chiefs. Those are some difficult games. But I want to talk a little bit about something that happened in the Commanders-Panthers game. The Commanders won 40-7, okay? But they lost their rookie quarterback, phenom, Jaden Daniels, with a rib injury, okay? And this is a cautionary tale, in my opinion, about what the Broncos have been doing with Bo Nix. What the Broncos have been doing with Bo Nix is designing runs to take advantage of Bo's athleticism and the thing he feels most comfortable doing right now, which is running the football. Bo, if you're watching him in the pocket, he wants to get out. He wants to move. He wants to do some stuff with his legs. And that's good. That's great, Bo. You are an athlete, and you are making some awesome plays with your legs. You can't teach that stuff, okay? You can't teach that. And this guy, Jaden Daniels, is on his way to earning Rookie of the Year honors. He's already won NFC Player of the Week. This guy is the Commanders are one of the best teams in the league right now, and this guy is one of the reasons why. He's playing phenomenal. But guess what happens when you design runs and you lean on a quarterback's ability to run? Exactly what happened to this guy yesterday. He hurt his ribs. You know what happens? You know why you get rib injuries in the NFL? You know what happens? You know what happens when you hurt your ribs? Rib injuries happen to people who get hit. Okay? Not people who do the hitting, but people who get hit. And who gets hit in the ribs on a football field? Guys who are carrying the ball down the field. Okay? Ball carriers get hit in the ribs. The more you rely on your quarterback to run the football, the quicker he will be sidelined. And now we're risking losing this guy because he's taken off and running. You got to be careful with that stuff. There's a reason why Patrick Mahomes just ran in his first touchdown since December of 22. That's right. He hadn't had a running touchdown since December of 2022 until he did yesterday against the Niners. He knows when to run and when to get down. And I don't know if you saw that game, but he also he gets down so much and he runs out of bounds so much that he can fake running out of bounds, and everyone thinks he's about to stop. Then he runs upfield for 30 more yards. The quarterback is protected in this game. You need to learn how to let the refs protect you as a quarterback. When you start running off and diving forward and doing all this stuff, you're not protected and you're going to get hit. We got to be careful with that with Bo. As exciting as, like I was saying, as this first half of the season has been, watching these young quarterbacks run all over the field, the best quarterback in the league, the guy who's looking for his third consecutive Super Bowl title and has his team 6-0, doesn't do designed runs. Okay? Not really. He stands in the pocket and deals, and if he sees lanes, he takes off. Because when you run, you get hit. When you get hit, you get hurt. So Sean Payton, take notice. Stop with the designed runs for Bo. We don't need it, especially not this week coming up against the Panthers. Last thing we need is this guy to get hurt. All right, DeShaun Watson. DeShaun Watson has torn his Achilles tendon and is done for the season. And you could actually see that thing pop in the game. You never hope anyone will get hurt, and I understand the long road to recover that happens when you do. DeShaun Watson is in for a long road to recovery. But this player, I don't know if there's anyone in the NFL that had more controversy surrounding him than this guy, DeShaun Watson, so much so that when he was down on the field yesterday, about to get carted off, the fans in the stands, what were they doing? Did they give him an ovation when they finally got him up into the cart? No. They booed his ass. They booed him. They booed this man as he lay in a puddle of his own emotions, done for the season, his body failing him, snapping one of the biggest ligaments in his body, and taking him off the field, not to return this season. DeShaun Watson has been embroiled in a lot of controversy, lawsuits for sexual misconduct against masseuses, a lot of them, a lot of allegations. And yet, amidst those allegations, the Browns signed him to a record contract with all of it guaranteed. $260 million guaranteed for a guy embroiled in sexual allegations of misconduct and lawsuits. And the Browns said, no, we care more about your ability on the football field. But since he's been on the football field for the Browns, he's played like shit. He hasn't been able to block out all that negative energy and play well. He had already spent a year plus out of the game. So it just goes to show you. It goes to show you a lot. I don't know what it goes to show you. But is it ever okay? You tell me, is it ever okay to boo for a man who's hurt on the field? Is that sort of energy helpful? Did he deserve all of that? Did DeShaun Watson deserve that ire? Or does he deserve our empathy and sympathy in that moment? Understanding that he is working his hardest to get out there and fight for his teammates. And yes, the city of Cleveland. Okay, what do we as football fans bear responsibility for? Is there integrity on our side of it? Should we forgive him and the mistakes he's made and support his reform? Should we encourage him to get better? Should we empathize with this man? Well, his teammates heard the boos. They did. And a lot of them were not happy. Jameis Winston was talking about it in the locker room and saying shame on you to the fans who were booing him, and talking about how hard he worked and what a great guy he had turned out to be, and how bad he felt to hear those boos. Also, this guy came to his defense as well and said, we can do better. Myles Garett said, we can do better. And he's the same guy who did this in a game, pulled off Mason Rudolph's helmet and swung it at him and smacked him in the head with it. So those coming to the defense of DeShaun Watson, the character witnesses, not exactly convincing. But hey, Myles Garett is one of the best defensive players in the league, and he has done his time and apologized for that incident right there. But a lot of emotions in this game, and a lot of people take it very seriously because it is serious. It's football. But DeShaun Watson, done in Cleveland for the season. You wonder if he's done for good. You know, I saw this other pretty interesting story. Saquan Barkley returned to play the Giants, and he saw someone burning his jersey up in the stands. Someone burning his jersey as he rolled up. Football, like I said, we take this very seriously. But are we taking it too seriously, guys? Are we taking it a little bit too seriously? This is a human being, Saquon Barkley, who's done nothing to encourage that sort of ire other than go to a different team in the division, a team who actually wanted to pay him more. You got to understand, these guys are humans. They're peoples, okay? They're humans. And they're putting it on the line, but after they put it on the line for the team, they go home to their families. They open their phones, and what do they see? Hate. Hate. Directed towards them. Not necessary, guys. Not necessary. Did want to mention a couple other things about the sports world, not affiliated with the football weekend. The New York Liberty won the WNBA championship over the Minnesota Lynx, bringing a title to New York. And I'm not sure. I didn't see the game. It was apparently a really good series, but the Liberty are WNBA champions there. And also, if you're baseball fans, which I know a lot of folks aren't around here or want to be, but haven't been, the Yankees and the Dodgers will be playing in the World Series. Dodgers won the pennant yesterday, headed to the World Series to face the New York Yankees, satisfying that coastal elite baseball fetish. The Yankees playing in their 41st World Series. 41 World Series for the New York Yankees. The Dodgers going to be playing in their 22nd World Series and their fourth in 8 years. The Dodgers clearly on a dynastic run right now with Shohei Ohtani and a really solid team around him. That will be, if you watch baseball and you're into that, a pretty cool series. One more note before we get out of here about this weekend's football slate. You know, if you believe in redemption stories, then you're going to love this one. Brandon McManus, former Broncos kicker, cut by the Broncos in favor of Will Lutz, Sean Payton's old kicker in New Orleans, played in Jacksonville last year, and this offseason was the object of another sexual misconduct allegation and lawsuit by some folks, well, not some folks, a couple of flight attendants on a flight when they went from Jacksonville to London. A lot of the guys on that flight got fucked up. Apparently they were smoking weed in the bathrooms, which I find to be asinine, that they were smoking weed in the bathrooms on a flight. What the hell is going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars where that's okay, where there aren't authority figures preventing that, but they were hammered as well. They were drinking a lot. And this guy, Brandon McManus, acted like a scumbag in front of the flight attendants, okay? The details of which you can see in the lawsuit that was filed. That lawsuit was settled or dropped. I imagine there were some payments made. I don't know the details about that, but these were all allegations, allegedly. We don't know the truth. But Brandon McManus was cut by the Jaguars after that and ended up being a free agent for quite a while, okay, until that case was settled / dropped. And then he was on the docket. And now you just got to wait, Brandon, because you're a good kicker. You were at one point a top 5 NFL kicker. You fell off a little bit at the end, but you still have that ability. Kickers can kick forever if they stay on top of their game and keep their minds in it. Kicking is a mental game. It ain't that hard. If once you know how to kick, you know how to kick. All right. It's really about how strong is your mind. Do you have a steel trap mind that can step out there with a game on the line and dial it down the freaking center? This guy used to be able to do it all the time. So he still has that ability within him. But what he's been through and what his family has been through because of these allegations, you imagine, have made things pretty difficult for him. Well, Brandon McManus was signed by the Green Bay Packers just this week. And in the game against the Houston Texans, they trotted out Brandon McManus with only a couple seconds left on the clock in the fourth quarter, down by a point to win the game. And win the game he did. He dialed in a 45-yard field goal as time expired and was hoisted as the hero by his teammates who are still getting to know Brandon. And the look on his face as he was being hoisted by his teammates said to me, do I deserve this? Am I a hero? You are, Brandon, at least for a day. Redemption is available to anyone in this country. If you repent, you apologize, you change your ways, and of course, if you could bomb field goals as time expires. Hooray for BMAC. We'll see how things progress. But a couple of former Broncos had some big weeks, and so did the Broncos themselves. That's it for us on Guerilla Sports Daily on a Monday morning. I'm going to finish sipping my frothy cortado. You guys have yourselves a great day. I'm Nate Jackson, Guerilla Sports. See you guys next time.